So then, boys and girls, time for the WoW Economy Weekly Wrap-Up. This is episode, what is it, 181 now? Damn, this has been going on for some time. We go through this once every week. We go through this on Monday. Samadan puts this together for us on a Sunday and it goes up on Wowhead. The link for this, if you're watching it later on the YouTubes, will be in the description so you can check it out yourself. If you're watching here live, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and I'll get through to them as and when they're relevant. But let's dive straight into it. Let's see what we're talking about this week for the WoW Economy Weekly Wrap-Up. We have ourselves the Burning Crusade Classic Auction House Throttle, some Korthite Crystal costs, some alts, and setting up passive income, and then some further reading. So a little bit of a lighter week by the looks of things. Burning Crusade still being a hot topic of conversation. Lots of people are out playing TBC, doing their auction housey goblin stuff, and yeah, there's some interesting things happening for sure. With the popularity of the Burning Crusade Classic, lots of players are playing on lots of servers, and whilst layering is an elegant solution to relieve stress and bottlenecks on the server, that's not necessarily applying so much to the auction house. Layering can simply not help. Layering cannot help sheer the number of searches, posts, purchases that occur at any given time. And the auction house is becoming painfully slow on some realms for people playing Classic right now. So, my God, it really must be it must suck to be the developer that's been working on the auction house for Blizzard for so many years to kind of, bring it up to 21st century to then only release it back into Classic exactly as it was 15 years ago with all of the issues that... and the same developer's probably going to have to go back in and fix it again. That's gross, isn't it? But let's see what Blizzard have been doing to address this issue, because the auction house has genuinely been grinding to a halt on Classic from what I've been hearing. So what are they trying to do? Implemented setting changes intended to lower the time it takes to search the auction house. Players who list, bid, buy out or cancel a very large number of auctions now may incur a delay between some consecutive actions. So, the solution that Blizzard have put in place is similar to that has been in retail for a while now. There is the auction house throttle. In retail, it usually kicks in at about 60 actions. Those actions could be a multitude of things. That action could be listing an item, that action could be cancelling an item, and your auction house limit or throttle does sort of replenish itself if you just wait. But this can, yes, mean that people that are using things like Trade Skill Master to relatively effectively post, cancel, buy things on the auction house are now finding a significant delay between each consecutive action. Very much similar to how it works on retail, and this has caused some frustrations for people for sure. The throttle on usage is a huge limiting factor for those that like to play the auction house, and it's a similar fix, quote unquote fix, that happened in retail before the large auction house changes with commodities. There's been a suggestion that the new auction house from retail will be implemented into Classic. That would be like introducing leveling, scaling to leveling. It completely undermines the nature and appeal of the Classic auction house versus the retail experience. There are some key differences on the Classic auction house. In Classic, the first and last page system is integral in searching for early, late bid bargains. The price of your bid and or buyout is important when making auctions attractive to get noticed. You have the choice who and what stack size to list things in. Now, whilst implementing just the retail version of the auction house for Classic seems like the most sensible approach, I can understand why people are annoyed. But usability for most really needs to come before the usability for a few, right? The auction house should primarily work smoothly for 99% of the people trying to use it. Those 1% of people that are arguably clogging up the auction house I don't think they should take preference. If it means bringing the 21st century auction house to Classic, I think, in my opinion, it was probably a good way of dealing with it. They fixed it on retail for a reason, right? They fixed it on retail because it wasn't working as intended, to only implement the exact same auction house that they know this was. There's definitely the argument that they knew that this was going to happen and they could have done something to fix it before it happened, but sounds like they just need to finally fix the back end of it anyway. I have no clue how the development of these things work behind the scenes. I don't try to even claim that I have any idea what's going on. But what I would say is that Blizzard would have absolutely known this was going to happen, and is probably something that they should have, generated a solution for before the game went live. Yeah, it seems a bit of an odd one that they're now like trying to. It's almost like they tried to get away without doing it, on the hope that there just wouldn't be as many people using it in this fashion, but seems odd. Billis Anixia, though, put a post on the WoW forum and on his Twitter about the issue. We'll quickly go over the TLDR. Instead of throttling the auction house or introducing the retail system, please allow add-ons to request data for more than 50 auctions at a time. If somebody searches for netherweave cloth, they'd only need one search request instead of one for every 50 netherweave cloth auctions. This would dramatically reduce the stress on the auction house. You can think of the current system on the auction house as getting DDoSed with search requests. This would change. This change would fix that. This has been something that's been talked about a lot. Of just there's a lot of limitations that add-ons have when it comes to using things like the auction house, and I would imagine it's Blizzard's way of keeping the add-ons from getting too powerful. But I do agree that if it's at a point where they're limiting the results that you can get for every single request that an add-on makes, so the add-on is then having to just make 10 times more requests to get the information it needs, which in turn is slowing the system down for everybody, then maybe it is something that needs to be fixed for sure. The reason the auction house is as slow as it is on Hypop Realms is that there's simply too many players. Layering allowed Blizzard to have more players on one realm, but that does not apply to the auction house, and then the auction house became the bottleneck. That's also very true. Layering has given people like multiple times more players on a single server than there was back in the days, for sure. This is what Sapu said about it yesterday. I think that's coming down below. I think there's a quote from Sapu here, which we'll get to in a minute. Twice the number of players doesn't necessarily mean twice the numbers of searches, since the number of auctions each player has to search through also then doubles. The number of search requests then quadruples. Yeah, this is an exponentially increasing issue, rather than it just being like a default, if twice as many people are playing, then the auction house might be half as slow. No, because the auction house is then, if there's twice as many people playing, the auction house is going to have significantly more stuff on it. 10 times more transactions will then be happening. Yeah, it's not surprising this has become a bit of an issue. There's a much better approach though, and I'm not sure why nobody is talking about this. Allow add-ons to request data on all the auctions matching the search filters all at once, instead of splitting it into chunks of 50. So right now, let's say there are 789 auctions for netherweave cloth, and somebody searches the auction house using an auction house add-on, or even manually. The auction house gets bombarded with 16 search requests because you have to flip through 16 pages of auctions. Well, this is primarily the reason I think why they changed it for the current retail system, right? The default auction house now doesn't do that, but add-ons are still restricted to doing that. Thing about Billis's request is that it's a common technique called paging, which we use to deliver manageable numbers of results. Otherwise, you're often trying to push just too much data in one go and you crash the client. Okay. So, yeah, there's always two sides to every story then, isn't there? If Auction House add-ons could simply request all of the information with one search request, this would make things much faster and dramatically reduce the stress on the servers. But then I guess you're offloading that stress onto the client rather than the server. Yeah. While this is one search would be bigger than each of the smaller 16 searches, it would be much faster and probably smaller than the sum of the 16 searches combined, saving a lot of overhead for the servers. A while ago, I believe it was during BFA, Blizzard actually introduced a bug where adding the usable filter to a search did just this. When you added usable to the search, the auction house would return all results at once instead of splitting it into chunks of 50. Oh dear, oh dear. This made things so much faster. It was so good that add-ons like TSM even incorporated it into their code wherever possible. They'll add the usable to speed up searches, and it sped things up considerably until the bug was fixed. This is the problem, right? This is the problem. There's this clash of heads, right, between what Blizzard allow add-ons to do and what add-ons could potentially... I kind of understand why Blizzard don't let add-ons just have full reign, because you know full well the add-ons would get so complex and would become so sophisticated. Blizzard want to make it... Blizzard don't want the game... They don't want any one single add-on to become mandatory. And when add-ons get too powerful, they become mandatory. I mean, you can kind of almost say that Trade Skill Master, from a Goblin perspective, is almost a mandatory add-on now anyway, because of what it does. But I kind of also understand it from the point of view that Blizzard want you to be able to fully utilize the game just kind of the way that it is. DBM is mandatory. Good luck getting into a raiding guild without it. That's a similar thing. It's a similar thing, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole for now. I think the issue is that if Blizzard allowed, you know, auction house based add-ons to just get all of the information they needed whenever they wanted to, it would just become that the add-on would just become a little bit too powerful, and I think that's probably what Blizzard are trying to, you know, kind of hold back on. There's a totally different discussion to be had, I think, at some point, to like whether auction house add-ons are just too powerful already. That they're able to supersede what anybody is able to even potentially achieve without that said add-on. So, it's interesting. I don't know what the overall fix for this would be. I know I see it from both sides that just implementing the retail version of the auction house to classic does, in a fashion, change the old system, and it's a hashtag no changes thing again, right? But the usability of the game for the many seem or should be preferential, right? And if it means that introducing 2021's auction house to classic so that it's, you know, relatively speedy for everybody involved, I think would be a huge benefit overall. Even if some of the, you know, die-hard classic fans are a bit annoyed that, you know, pretty stacking will go away and that sort of stuff. But yeah, maybe it's for the great good. I'm not sure. Sapu, though, the lead developer of TSM, also had some input to this. Throttling the auction house is a terrible solution. Once again, Blizzard would rather degrade some users' experience than actually work with add-on developers, who they directly blamed for past issues on retail, to actually fix the problem. Yeah, there we go. This kind of this explains it well, doesn't it? There's that kind of clashing of heads between add-on developers and Blizzard themselves. Blizzard want to obviously allow add-ons to be a thing, but they at the same time they don't want the add-ons to become too powerful, and so they implement things like throttling to the system to make it so that, you know, there's not that much of a huge difference between using the default UI and using an add-on. Blizzard going to do their own TSM when? I don't think they ever will. It's not really in their interest to. The default auction house is, ironically nowadays, there are lots of things the default auction house is significantly better than add-ons for. Searching and buying materials, for example, the default auction house, because there's not this limitation, if you go to the auction house right now, you can search for any single material and you will instantly get the information you need. Like, I just opened the auction house and instantly all of this information was here and it was all accurate. And this is a list of 25 items. If I tried to do the same search on TSM, it would have to ping a request for every single item before it got the information back. So the system is there as far as Blizzard are concerned. But there's definitely a restriction on add-ons to how fast and how optimal that they can operate. And yes, it is causing a bit of a clash of heads between some of the developers of these add-ons for sure. The only reason the default UI is better right now is because they don't have the limitations that they put on the add-ons. But yeah, that's it. Like, the add-ons are somewhat deliberately limited, I think, to prevent them from getting overly powerful, I would imagine, is the official Blizzard stance on it behind the scenes. Final thoughts on this one though. We do hope that Blizzard keeps up communication channels and we can come up with a solution that works for all. Adding the retail version of the auction house, even if it were possible, would take away a huge part of the appeal of classic auction house play. It would. I don't disagree. Pretty stacking and stuff is nice, but let's be real. If it fundamentally doesn't work, if it just clogs up the auction house, if that system with so many auctions and so many players just fundamentally doesn't work, then I don't believe it should be left as an option. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Sapu said this yesterday in a Discord. Hang on, let me view it off screen before. There were tons of things they could do and their engineers were on board with making those sort of changes after 8.3. Just management wasn't. I also agree that putting the retail auction house would be bad. Yeah, there's yeah, like I said, there's a very distinct clash of heads between the add-on developers and the Blizzard devs themselves, and the problem is that the true line will never actually become public because like I said, the matter of the fact is they probably don't want Trade Skill Master getting too powerful, and they probably already consider Trade Skill Master to be powerful enough. And so if you have to use yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not collating my thoughts properly on this one, but overall, regarding putting the retail auction house into Classic, I would go as far as to say that, well, if it makes the auction house a better experience for 90% of the players, there's no reason not to do it. Even if you annoy 10% of the player base. It is for the greater good. And add-ons just have to live within the realms of what Blizzard allow, because they are in essence sat on top of, you know, Blizzard's IP, which is a bit gross, but Peggle got too big and banned going into Cataclysm. TSM is going to go. I don't think so. I don't think so. Peggle, ironically, actually got built into the game. Jewel crafters can craft it now. Was that Peggle? I can't remember. Anyway. Next topic of conversation: the Korthite crystal costs. This is a big. This is something that's relatively big, and I'm really hoping we see additional changes to this before 9.1 goes live. So for those who are not caught up, as of the last PTR update, they rebalanced the material requirements to make the Vestige of Origins. So Vestige of Origins is the optional reagent that is used for legendaries. So consider it like your crafter's marks, but for legendaries. Now, the crafting cost of these is pretty redonkulous for some professions. Tailoring, for example, considering tailoring doesn't have a large pool of materials to pull from, there's just 2 pieces of cloth and then you're relying on vendor materials. They've had to very heavily stack the amount of lightless silk, shrouded cloth and penumbra thread needed to make one of these, to make it balance the cost across the board. Yeah, tailors are a little, like, people are starting to panic buy lightless silk at the moment. I'll talk about why that's a bad idea in a minute, but the one thing to note is actually the Korthite crystals. Korthite crystals is the only, to my knowledge, the only new material coming in patch 9.1. It is a legendary material that you get by, there's a few different ways to get it. Daily quests out on Korthia is the primary way to get it. If you're really lucky, you can get it from the weekly chest. In Korthia, if you're really lucky, you can also pull them from some of the treasures that are located around Korthia as well. So there are ways and means of getting access to some of these, but we need a lot of them to make every single legendary. As you can see, every profession needs 40 of them to get up to craft just a single optional reagent to make a single rank 5 or rank 6 legendary. This is a lot. And in relation to how many of them that it's possible to actually acquire, it's kind of, in my opinion, quite high. Now, goblins are probably not going to be too concerned about this, because the higher the quantity, the higher the price of them, the rarer they will be, and the more potential profit there is for those that endeavour to craft these rank 5 and 6 legendaries. But there are some growing concerns that 40 is just too much. But let's see what a few people had to say about this in detail. So I think that tailoring being higher is an effort to fix costs. Blacksmiths and leather workers were always more expensive than tailoring Legos on my server. In fact, tailoring anything on my server is worth about nothing. This is kind of true. This is going to come as a bit of a shock to cloth wearers in patch 9.1 if it stays the same, because what it is kind of doing is normalizing the cost of rank 5s and rank 6s across the professions. The lion's share, the majority of the crafting cost for rank 5s and rank 6s is not going to be the base materials, it's going to be these. It's going to be these Korthite crystals, which when cloth wearers, leather wearers, mail wearers, plate wearers, they're all going to have to pay this 40 Korthite crystal cost for every single legendary. It's going to be really weird, right? Because you'll have rank 4 tailoring legendaries right now. Your rank 4 tailoring legendary, you can probably pick it up for like 10k gold on most realms. Rank 4 tailoring legendaries are relatively cheap, certainly in comparison to, say, a rank 4 Umberhide helm. So leather workers, anybody that wears leather or anybody that wears mail is kind of used to relatively high legendary prices now. Cloth wearers have had the luck of the draw in patch 9.0 that their legendaries have been significantly cheaper by a factor of like multiples. But coming into patch 9.1, if the majority of the crafting cost of rank 5 and 6 is going to come from these, with all of them needing 40 crystals, it basically means anybody is going to be paying roughly the same price for their rank 5 and their rank 6. What that price will end up being, though, is a bit subjective, because, of course, until the game goes live, we don't know what the economy is going to sort of price these at. But speculations already is that each Korthite crystal is going to be worth a lot the first few weeks. We're talking easy 10k gold in some cases the first couple of weeks for each individual Korthite crystal, which could be crazy. Jack the Dipper made a post on this talking about what it might mean for players and sellers alike, so let's take a quick flick through this. The Korthite crystal is an item that can be obtained in Korthia by doing some dailies. You can get it by finding treasures, you can also get it by killing rares and even the weekly quest. These ways to obtain Korthite crystals aren't even 100% guaranteed. That is true. There is no guaranteed way of getting any of these. There's RNG involved in all of those aspects. It means that the Korthite crystal could be very hard to obtain, or more importantly, super expensive to buy on the auction house. These costs will then be calculated into the rank 5s and 6, and I'm not sure if the casual or even hardcore player will be happy about this situation. This is true. There's not really any category of player that is kind of happy about this. Like relatively casual players that aren't trying to that they're not going for their BIS gear, they're not trying to min max, but they just kind of, they want to play the game, they want to get their legendary, but they equally don't want to be spending 400,000 gold on their legendary again. Are basically priced out of the game to begin with. And they're priced out of the game to begin with because the people that really do need their rank 5 or even rank 6 legendary as soon as possible, because they play in a competitive environment, whether it be raiding, Mythic Plus, PvP, those guys are going to have to pay a huge premium the first couple of weeks to get their hands on enough Korthite crystals. They themselves aren't going to be buying the Korthite crystals, but they're like, the price will only be passed on. The crafters are the ones that are going to be buying the Korthite crystals, but of course, whatever cost the crafters spend on buying the Korthite crystals is going to be integrated to the final selling price of the legendary for sure. So the price just gets passed on through the crafter, but so there's not really anybody that's happy about this. Farmers will have the most benefit from the system if they happen to have a couple of alts that can do the new content. They will have a better chance of gaining one or more Korthite crystals every single day. However, nobody can craft the rank 5s in the first week because the Vestige of Origin, the pattern to pick this up, is both reputation and renown gated. So you'll need to become honoured with a Death's Advance to get the recipe, and you also need to have obtained Renown 44 to complete the quest line that unlocks this in the first place. So it's only going to be possible in week 2 of Shadowlands to even craft these. That means the first week the Korthite crystals will be saved or posted on the auction house. It's going to be really interesting. The very first week of 9.1 is going to be really interesting. The fact that these things are sort of rare, people have already got a sniff of kind of what value they're going to be at. But those first 7 days, people will be able to gather them, people will be able to sell them, people will be able to buy them, but nobody will be able to actually do anything with them. Which means people might be able to, plan ahead and like squirrel them away and stockpile them a little bit. But it's a gamble, right? If you're a crafter out there, it's a real gamble buying these in the first week. Because do you buy them in the first week let's say they sell for 10,000 gold. Do you buy them in the first week when they're 10,000 gold, hoping that next week when everybody starts crafting them, the rarity of them will push the price to 20,000 gold a piece and you've now got yourself a good deal? Or the other side is, do you buy them for 10,000 gold in the first week because you think they're cheap, but actually so many people went out and farmed them on their alts and tried to sell them that the week after they dropped to only 5k gold and you've overspent for them. It's going to be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult from a crafter's perspective to do you buy these things in the first week? I'm probably going to farm the living crap out of them on as many characters as I can in the first week, stockpile them, and then see what happens when see what happens in week 2 when people start crafting these. I would like to make sure that I've got enough of them to at least, you know, dip my toe in the water. But there's no way there's going to be enough supply of these Korthite crystals. Absolutely no way there's going to be enough supply to meet the demand of the legendaries. Which will in turn mean that they'll be expensive, and it will in turn mean that rank 5s are just going to be stupidly expensive the first couple of weeks on almost every realm. I don't want to make one at the cost of 400k to then have the price fall down. That's it. It's a huge gamble. You're gambling everything on the value of one material. Everything is going to be balanced on the cost of this one material. It basically means the rest of the material cost for crafting the legendaries is... it doesn't really matter. It genuinely doesn't really matter. 90% of the cost of crafting a rank 5 is going to be in these 40 Korthite crystals. At least for the first couple of weeks. If it stays the way that it is. I'm really hoping that Blizzard either listen to what people have to say about this and drop the number that is needed from 40 down to... I mean, you could technically cut it in half. And they would still be rare and they'd still be expensive. It doesn't fix the problem, but it, you know, softens the blow. Alternatively, I really hope that Blizzard just increase the quantity of them that you're able to acquire. Right now, the random nature of maybe you get one from your dailies, maybe you don't. And at best, you might get one for completing a daily. They're just too rare at the moment. Like I said, personally, I don't mind. If they're stupidly expensive, it just means that a true goblin is going to be able to take advantage of that and squeeze even more profit out. But it's not good for the overall player base. If 9.1 lands and rank 5 legendaries are listed on the auction house for 500,000 gold apiece, that's not good for anybody. It's good for the one person that's selling that legendary, but it's not good for the game generally. Rank 5, like because you could have spent some serious gold getting your rank 4 legendary in the first place, especially if you did it early in patch 9.0. To have to spend that same amount of, like, people just won't do it. If they're too expensive, people won't buy them. It might theoretically detract from the value of the rank 5 completely. People might just sit with their rank 4. 40 is just a placeholder. I'm almost 100% about it. I don't think they are. The concern is these are the rebalanced numbers. They started off being only 1 for most of the professions and 20 for blacksmithing. And then last week they changed them to these. So you don't rebalance something to a new placeholder number. That doesn't make any sense. I believe that Legendaries is Blizzard's way of gold sinking in Shadowlands, since we haven't seen anything like a super expensive 2 mil Spider or Longboy. To a degree, I think I agree with... Yeah, I think I agree with you for the most part. Any transaction on the auction house takes 5% of that value. So if you sell a base legendary item for 500,000 gold on the auction house, 5% of that value, which is what, like 25,000 gold, just poof, disappears out of the game instantly. The auction house is the #1 gold sink in the game by far. It's subtle and most people don't realise it, but the bigger the transaction values on the auction house, the more gold leaves the game. Because it's all based on that 5%. So arboreal shards in patch 9.1 have... arboreal shards in general have been a massive gold sink. And I think Blizzard might use super high value items to remove more gold from the game even. But yeah, it's a bit of a concern to what might happen. If you want to like a little bit more of a deeper dive into it, I did put a video together a few days ago. I created this video from the mindset of not a goblin, but from, you know, just general Joe that's looking at what legendaries are going to be. So yeah, if you're just a regular player to the game, then you probably want to start saving some of your gold if you want a rank 5 or 6 legendary early days, because they are going to be expensive. Without question, they're going to be expensive. So feel free to watch the video if you want a little bit of a deeper dive into that. But alt armies are going to probably do very well the first couple of weeks. That's pretty much what I can say for certain. That if you have a few characters that you can run through Korthite, couple of level 60s running through there every day, you should get a couple of these Korthite crystals every day. The likelihood is that they will sell for a fair amount on the auction house pretty easily. But anyway, next topic of conversation then, alts and setting up some passive income. Guy on the Reddit poses an interesting topic, as so many people have been leveling alts during the downtime between patches. So the guy says, I have like 10 level 50 alts and 4 level 60s on retail. All of them have got tier 3 garrisons and maxed out legion tables. I will also level more level 50s most likely. Side quest, what's the best expansion? Blah, 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 blah. I'm wondering what low effort activities could be best used to grab some quote unquote free gold. Here are some thoughts. Shadowlands table, Shadowlands callings, Shadowlands call to arms of some effort, only available for level 60s though. Camping rares or old raid farming. So this was this got quite a lot of traction on the subreddit. That people, there's lots of people out there in a similar position, right? They've got a whole bunch of alts that are mostly sat at level 50 because of BFA, and they're trying to put them to at least some good use. And by no surprise, very quickly the one that got focused on was the Shadowlands table. The mission table, once you can get it to become at least anima neutral, maybe even anima positive, can give you some absolutely ludicrous results. But of course that is a level 60 thing. At level 50, there's not a huge amount of things that you can do with your alts. But I'm also weird, I mean, I know this is a bit of a hot take, but I'm kind of the opinion that the way the game is created nowadays is that I don't think your level 50 alts should be able to make a lot of gold, because it's, you know, it's not the current content. I think the majority of the opportunities should be at level 60, because that's where the current game is, you know, it's where all of the activity is and arguably should be. But let's have a look at what we've got here. An important caveat we should mention is that the break-even point for the mission table for the anima the anima table to go from neutral to anima positive requires you to upgrade your Covenant Sanctum to all rank 2s and then eventually all rank 3s. At all rank 2s, the anima table is already anima positive. Getting it to all rank 3s is a massive anima investment and should really only be considered a bonus, really. Arguable why. I think it's sad that on content is so dead and unused. It's just a waste. It's arguably based on the fact that that's how the game is designed. I don't agree with the way the game is designed. I do agree that all of this owned content we should, yes, for sure, have some use for it. But unfortunately, that's not reality. The way the game is designed is that, you know, Shadowlands content is where everything is. Anything before that, from a Blizzard perspective, is basically dead in the water. I don't agree it should be like that, but all Shadowlands content, the way the game is designed now, that's where the opportunities should be. And we see this when it comes to, like, we see this, the fact that old raids, for example, had their reward, like the gold that they produced, they had all of that, like, just completely nerfed into the ground. Farms in Pandaria my god, that's a possibility. The Tillers farm, I've forgotten about that thing. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that thing. And yeah, I'm bouncing around again. Let's get back on track. If you don't have enough anima to upgrade your sanctum buildings, then you kind of have to be picky with your missions, otherwise you'll be anima starved, and you'll have to actively play your alts. It's not really actively. If we've worked it out that if you just do the world boss for your 250 anima, if you do like one of the elite world quests, the 250 anima world quest, there's 500 anima really quickly. Then if you go and do the souls in the maw, which you should probably want to keep up with anyway because it's a nice trickle of renown on your alts. By the time you cap out at 100 souls in your covenant, you then get 500 anima for completing that every week as well. Which obviously it will take you a few weeks if that alt is really an alt and just sits there and does nothing. But once you cap out your souls as well, that bonus 500 anima for like 5 minutes of work collecting 20 souls on a Wednesday is super quick and easy anima. So you can get your 1000 anima done with almost no effort whatsoever. I mean, it's close to no effort. I wouldn't consider it, actively playing at that point. You're logging on for maybe 20 minutes a week. You can't argue. There's a little bit of setup. But once you've got that little bit of setup, it's easy game. It's easy game. Some other ideas, though. Other ideas include setting up alt farms for previous expansions. I have an alt army as well. The garrison herbs and ore still sell. Also collecting resources to buy cheap hides, furs in the trade house. Pandaria farm at Half Hill. Fastest way to farm Trillium ore. Professions, you got your daily cooldowns to make things like the sky golems. You do that once per day, and every 30 days you get to craft the sky golem. Legion missions are good for Blood of Sargeras, especially since actually farming Blood of Sargeras is now more complicated than it used to be. So yes, getting on board with this is probably quite wise. The Blood of Sargeras, the reason most people want to farm it is once again it goes into the making of a mount, and you need a reasonably large amount of Blood of Sargeras to make each mount. BFA missions for pet charms. Buy pets with the pet charms, cage them and then sell them. You could even do world quests for gold, e.g. in BFA there's often 15 Tempest hides, buy them for 15 gold, get a reward of 150 gold. Could almost consider it a shuffle. Yeah, there's a few ways you can use those, but they're things that are never going to make you rich, right? It's a nice little passive tick over of gold for sure. Maybe it means that you can kind of feel like you're utilizing those alts in some way, shape or form. But put a few hours into leveling them up to 60, get the mission table on the go, and eventually that will be way more profitable than I think almost any of those past things combined. And finally, don't forget about the professions though. This should always be a side hustle for you, but it's true to say that yes, past expansion professions can still bring in a lot of gold if you've got them leveled up. Even without spending a fortune on legendary levels, there is usually something to sell for 15 to 20% profit. Yeah. Even current Shadowlands professions, right? Most professions can be leveled up to max from as little as level 48. Now, there will always be some benefit to being 60 and doing some rep grinds for some things, but most of the professions can still do something from very early days. Crafter's Mark 2, for example. If you've unlocked it once on your account, Venari will sell it to anybody. In fact, in theory, that still requires you to be 60 to even speak to Venari in the first place. But even let's say item level 87 gear, which is novice Crafter's Marks. We were talking earlier a little bit the 117 gear. There's a market for it. Alchemy, for example, you can basically min-max the whole of Alchemy on a level 48 character that hasn't even stepped foot into Shadowlands, which is a bit weird, but it's true. Professions can certainly net you some solid use of those level 50 characters. For sure. And then finally, it's good to note that also remember Korthite crystals could be incredibly useful to have alt army in early 9.1. Yes, very, very true. Well, there we go then. That was the weekly economy wrap-up, episode number 181. If you want to do some further reading, you can jump onto the /r/WoW Economy subreddit. There's also the Discord server for them as well. And of course, if you want to catch up with Samadan, who's the guy that puts this together for us every week, you can catch him over on his Twitch channel, or he's linked his Twitter here as well. There we go. There we go. Do we dare read the comments? Do we dare read the comments? I tend not to read the comments for the purpose of the YouTube video because they trigger me. So if you're watching this live, feel free to throw your questions in chat. We'll go through them in a minute. If you're watching this at a later date on YouTube, hope you enjoyed. Remember to hit the like button on the video and subscribe if you're new around here. And I'll catch you guys as far as the YouTubes later.